They passed my leather diary around like a party game. My mother cleared her throat. My father smirked, and my cousin's laugh, so pathetic, cut through the room as if I wasn't standing there. The pages, my private thoughts about the miscarriage, my salary anxieties, everything laid bare for their entertainment. I didn't cry. I didn't lunge for the book. Instead, I counted faces, memorized every witness, pressed record on my phone hidden in my pocket, and began the kind of revenge you don't walk back from. My name is Eva Hart, and I'm 34 years old, a customer experience analyst at Northbridge Analytics in Cincinnati. That night at Aunt Lorraine's Victorian mansion in Mount Adams should have been just another mandatory family gathering, the kind where everyone pretends we're closer than we are while drinking too much wine from her collection. The dining room smelled like rosemary lamb and expensive candles. 23 relatives packed around the mahogany table, their voices bouncing off the high ceilings. I'd tucked my leather diary into my purse. I always carry it, a habit from therapy, jotting down thoughts between courses to stay grounded during these performances. My mother, Elaine, stood up during dessert, tapping her wedding ring against her champagne flute. "Before we wrap up," she announced, her voice carrying that theatrical quality she'd perfected over decades of PTA meetings. "Victor and I have prepared something special for tonight's entertainment." My father pulled my purse from behind his chair. My actual purse. The brown leather one I'd left by the coat rack. My stomach dropped as he unzipped it, fishing out my diary with the practiced ease of someone who'd rehearsed this moment. "Our Eva's always been so secretive," Mother said, flipping open the leather cover. "We thought everyone might enjoy hearing what actually goes on in that head of hers." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter, some genuine, some nervous. Uncle Pete refilled his bourbon. Aunt Lorraine's smile tightened, but she said nothing. Her house, but my parents' show. October 15th, Mother read, adjusting her reading glasses. "The bleeding started at 3:42 a.m. Mark held me while I sobbed on the bathroom floor. 8 weeks. We'd already picked names." She paused for effect, glancing up. "How dramatic." Mason, my cousin with the trust fund and cocaine habit everyone ignores, burst out laughing. "So pathetic," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What is she, 15, writing in a diary?" "Here's a good one," Father chimed in, grabbing the book. "November 3rd, discovered I'm making $12,000 less than Brad for the same position. HR claims it's about experience, but Brad started 3 months after me. Our little feminist warrior." He smirked at the table. "Maybe if you focused more on work instead of scribbling." 3 phones were out, recording. Mason's girlfriend, Stephanie, had hers propped against a wine bottle, getting the perfect angle. My younger cousin Ruby looked like she might cry. Mark, my partner of 2 years, sat frozen beside me, his knuckles white around his fork. "December 28th, Mother continued. "Mark's mother asked when we're getting married. I wanted to scream that her son hasn't touched me since the miscarriage, that we sleep like roommates. Enough." Mark stood, his chair scraping against hardwood. "Oh, come on," Mason said, still filming. "This is just getting good. Don't be so sensitive." I felt everything slow down, crystallize. The way condensation ran down wine glasses. How grandmother's portrait watched from the wall. The sound of someone's knife hitting their plate. 23 faces, and I cataloged each one. Who laughed openly, Mason, Stephanie, Uncle Pete. Who looked away, Aunt Lorraine. Ruby. My father's secretary, Janet, who always gets invited for some reason. Who participated, my parents. Obviously. Who sat complicit in their silence, everyone else. My phone sat in my pocket, recording everything. Audio would be enough. Their voices, the laughter, the wine-drunk cruelty of people who'd known me since birth but never knew me at all. "There's more," Mother sing-songed, flipping pages. Should we read about her thoughts on Thanksgiving? Or maybe the part about her therapist saying she has family trauma? I stood slowly, deliberately, didn't reach for the diary, didn't give them the reaction they'd choreographed this moment for, Instead, I looked at each face around that table, memorizing. Then I spoke, my voice steady as glass. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you all for making this so very clear." So, I picked up my wine glass, still half full of Aunt Lorraine's good Pinot, and poured it slowly, deliberately, onto my mother's plate, watching the red seep into her $60 lamb. Then I walked out, leaving my diary in their hands, leaving Mark to find his own way home, leaving 23 witnesses who had no idea what they'd just set in motion. The fire was lit. The roots of this poison run deep. Growing up in Dayton, our house was a stage where Mother directed every scene. She'd been a beauty queen once Miss Montgomery County 1987 and never recovered from aging out of the crown. Father, a regional sales manager who traveled 4 days a week, perfected the art of strategic absence. When he was home, he became her audience of one, applauding whatever performance she'd prepared. Mason was always the golden child of our extended family. 3 years older than me, accepted to Ohio State on a legacy admission. Never finished, but nobody mentions that. He had the heart jawline, the easy laugh, the kind of confidence that comes from never having consequences stick. At family gatherings, adults would cluster around him while I sat with my books, already learning the hierarchy. The public humiliations started small. 8th grade. Mother found my diary. Yes, I've always kept one and read my first attempt at poetry at Easter brunch. Listen to our little Emily Dickinson, she'd laughed, while relatives smiled uncomfortably over their ham. High school graduation. She told everyone about finding birth control in my drawer, spinning it into a cautionary tale about modern girls while I sat in my cap and gown, cheeks burning. Mason's wedding 5 years ago, Mother announced to the reception that I'd been in therapy, that the therapist said I had abandonment issues. She'd stolen that from a letter I'd accidentally left at home. "We never abandoned you, sweetie," she'd said into the microphone, the crowd awkwardly clapping. Some people just need more attention than others. There was the Thanksgiving. I brought my ex-girlfriend home. Mother introduced her as my confused phase to every single relative. The Christmas she gave me, Weight Watchers pamphlets as a stocking stuffer, explaining to gathered cousins that she was concerned about my health. The birthday dinner where she told the waiter about my antidepressants while ordering. In case there were interactions with the wine, I'd forgiven it all, rationalized, made excuses. She doesn't mean it that way. It's generational. That's just how she shows love. My first therapist, Dr. Brennan, spent 2 years trying to crack through my defenses. "Your normal meter is broken," she'd said. "What feels familiar isn't the same as what's acceptable." But I'd kept going back, kept showing up to dinners, holidays, celebrations where I was guaranteed to become entertainment. Some sick part of me believed that one day, if I was good enough, successful enough, normal enough, they'd finally just let me be. The diary incident was different. This wasn't a careless comment or a thoughtless moment. They'd gone into my purse, my personal property. They'd planned this, rehearsed it, turned my private pain into dinner theater. The miscarriage I hadn't even told most friends about. The salary discrimination I was building courage to address. The intimate details of my relationship that Mark had to sit through, hearing his own struggles weaponized for laughs. Standing on Aunt Lorraine's porch, cold air cutting through my dress. I made 3 calls. First, Avery Cole, my friend from law school who'd specialized in privacy law. "I need you," I said when she answered. "Bring your laptop and your worst professional self." Second, Dr. Marin, my current therapist. Left a voicemail. "I'm about to burn it all down. I need an emergency session to make sure I do it right." Third, Mark. He answered before the first ring ended. "I'm in the car," he said. "Your coat's here. Where are you?" "Aunt Lorraine's porch. But don't come back. Go home. Pour yourself something strong and clear your calendar for tomorrow night. We're doing this the right way." Eva. "They think cruelty is entertainment," I said, watching through the window as Mason pawed through my diary. reading select passages to his girlfriend. They think pain is performance art. They've never seen me actually perform. Inside, Mother had moved on to my workplace observations, adding commentary like a twisted book club. Father was pouring more wine, keeping the audience lubricated. Ruby had disappeared, probably hiding in the bathroom. Aunt Lorraine stood by the fireplace, her face unreadable. "What are you going to do?" Mark asked. I thought about every family gathering I'd attended, every public shaming I'd absorbed, every time I'd smiled and pretended it didn't leave scars. Every therapist appointment where I'd minimized their behavior, defended them, claimed it wasn't that bad. "I'm going to teach them the difference between a victim and an opponent," I said, "and they're going to learn that distinction in front of the same audience they used against me." Through the window, I watched Mother reach the pages about my therapy sessions, her voice carrying even through glass. The fire in my chest wasn't rage anymore. It had crystallized into something harder, colder, more useful. This time was different. They'd crossed the final line, and they'd done it with witnesses. Avery arrived at my apartment at 11:30 p.m., legal pad in one hand, laptop bag in the other. She'd changed out of her pajamas into her courtroom uniform blazer, slacks, the expression that made opposing counsel sweat. "Play the recording," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. I connected my phone to the speaker. For 23 minutes, we listened to my mother's theatrical readings, my father's commentary, Mason's laughter, the ambient cruelty of forks on plates and wine being poured while my private thoughts became public entertainment. "Jesus Christ," Avery muttered, typing furiously. "They gift-wrapped this. Intrusion upon seclusion, they went into your bag. Conversion took your property without permission. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, the miscarriage content alone qualifies. Public disclosure of private facts check, check, and check." "I want more than a lawsuit," I said. "You'll get it. But first, we document everything while it's fresh." She pulled up a template. "Every word you remember, every person present, exact timeline. Then we preserve evidence before they realize what they've done." I spent 3 hours writing my statement, each detail crystallizing as I typed. At 2:45 a.m., I started messaging the relatives who hadn't laughed. To Aunt Lorraine, "I need the security footage from your foyer camera showing them going through my purse. I know you have it, you mentioned the new system at dinner." She responded immediately. "Already downloaded. I'm horrified. Eva, your mother told me it was a fun surprise you'd agreed to." To Ruby, "I know you left early. Will you write a statement about what you witnessed?" Already writing it. "That was fucking sick. Eva, I'm sorry I didn't speak up." To Uncle Glenn, who'd sat frozen during the reading, "I need you to be honest about what you saw. I recorded some of it. Thought I might need to show it to your parents later. Make them understand. I'll send you the file." By dawn, I had 14 minutes of phone audio, 6 minutes of Uncle Glenn's video, Lorraine's security footage showing Mother rifling through my purse at 7:15 p.m., and written statements from 3 witnesses. Avery drafted the cease and desist letters while I made coffee. "We're sending these to everyone who recorded demanding immediate preservation of evidence and no further distribution." Mason posted Instagram stories. I checked. He had 3 clips of my mother reading, tagged "da family fun, where truth hurts, where drama queen." "Screenshot everything," Avery ordered. "We'll add cyberbullying to the list." Mark arrived at 7 a.m. with breakfast and a flash drive. I wrote down everything I witnessed. Also, Stephanie posted TikToks. They're gaining traction, about 3,000 views so far. "Perfect," Avery said. "Public humiliation with metrics. The damages write themselves." We spent the morning building the case methodically. Avery identified 4 causes of action under Ohio law, each with statutory damages. She drafted a formal demand letter requiring the immediate return of my diary, destruction of all recordings, and public retraction of social media posts. "Now for the parallel track," she said. "The court of public opinion." I called Jaya, who owned River and Rail, the community cafe that hosted open mic nights and art shows. I need your space for an event. Boundaries and respect. A storytelling night about family violation dressed as entertainment. After what Mason posted, you can have any night you want. This Thursday. Perfect. Avery looked up from her laptop. Your parents have jobs. Right. Your father's still at Progressive Insurance, regional sales director. And your mother volunteers with the Junior League, membership chair. Why? Because. Avery smiled, the kind that made me understand why she'd never lost a privacy case. Social consequences require social leverage. We're not going scorched earth, we're going surgical. Every action has documentation. Every response is legally protected, but they need to understand that violating boundaries has consequences beyond family gatherings. My phone buzzed. Mother, you left your diary here. Such dramatic exit. If you want it back, apologize to the family for your behavior. I screenshotted the text, adding it to the evidence folder. Extortion. Now. They kept digging their hole deeper. One more thing, I told Avery. I want to prepare a decoy diary. Something special for the next family gathering. Elaborate. Invisible ink powder on the cover, the kind they use in banks. Anyone who touches it will have bright blue hands for a week. Completely legal, it's my property. I can mark it however I want. Avery actually laughed. You're thinking like a lawyer now, but bigger picture, what's your end game? I thought about every family gathering I'd have to attend for the rest of my life. Every wedding, funeral, holiday. I want boundaries, real ones, legal ones, the kind that come with consequences if crossed. Then we make them famous for exactly what they are, Avery said, cracking her knuckles. How much detail did your mother read about your salary? Everything. My exact number, my review notes, my 5-year plan. Minnesota has a salary disclosure prohibition statute. Ohio doesn't, but your company likely has policies. Let me make some calls. As Avery worked, I felt something I hadn't experienced in my family before control. They'd chosen the weapon's public humiliation and forced vulnerability. They just never expected me to pick them up and aim back. The plan came together like a Swiss watch, each gear precisely calibrated. Avery filed the civil paperwork on Monday, 4 separate causes of action with documented damages. The cease and desist letters went out via certified mail, requiring signatures. Mason would get his at Queensgate Impact, the nonprofit where he pretended to work between trust fund deposits. We're not just asking for apologies, Avery explained, reviewing the documents. We're creating a paper trail. Every violation from this point forward escalates the consequences. I prepared the decoy diary with scientific precision, the cover treated with smart water forensic spray, invisible, permanent, and traceable under UV light for months. Inside, blank pages except for one entry dated next week. The truth about family secrets isn't mine to tell, but if anyone reads this without permission, they've just committed a documented crime. The Thursday event at River and Rail required careful orchestration. I sent invitations to the entire extended family, the same 23 who'd witnessed Sunday's performance. You are cordially invited to Boundaries and Respect an Evening of Truth, the invitation read. Since you enjoyed participating in the public reading of private thoughts, you're welcome to attend a discussion about consent, privacy, and the difference between entertainment and abuse. I included Avery's letterhead at the bottom, not a threat, a promise. Mother called within an hour. Well, what is this supposed to be, some kind of manipulation? It's an invitation, I said calmly. The same way Sunday was your invitation for me to be entertainment. Family doesn't threaten each other with lawyers. Eva. Family doesn't steal from each other's purses and read their diaries aloud. Elaine. I used her first name deliberately. Thursday, 8 p.m. Your attendance is optional. The event is happening regardless. Mason texted from 3 different numbers after I blocked the first 2. Take down the event, or I'll make those diary readings look tame. Then, you think you're so smart with your lawyer friend? Finally, this is why nobody actually likes you. I forwarded each message to Avery, who added them to a supplemental filing for harassment. The real sophistication came from the parallel tracks. While preparing the public event, I worked with Northbridge Analytics' HR department. Turns out, publicly disclosing an employee's salary information violated 3 company policies. They couldn't fire my mother, but they could send a formal notice to Progressive Insurance about their employees' behavior potentially affecting intercompany relations. "We take employee privacy seriously," my HR director said. "If someone's family member is publicly sharing confidential compensation information, that's a security risk." For the junior league, I took a different approach. I didn't file a complaint. Instead, I sent the membership committee a concerned letter about whether public humiliation of family members aligned with their values of promoting volunteerism, developing women's potential, and improving communities. I included Uncle Glenn's video as reference material. The storytelling event needed the right framework, not a vengeful rant, but structured testimony. I recruited 3 other speakers through support groups, people who'd experienced family boundary violations. We workshopped our stories, focusing on behavior patterns rather than personal attacks. "Don't name them," Jaya advised during rehearsal. "Let the behavior speak. Anyone who was there will know exactly who you mean. But legally, you're just sharing your own experience." Mark designed simple slide statistics about privacy violations, quotes from psychology texts about family trauma, legal definitions of harassment. Nothing sensational, just facts projected behind us while we spoke. The decoy diary sat in my apartment, waiting, but I had one more element to prepare. I purchased a real safe biometric lock, bolted to my closet floor. Inside, I placed my real diary along with printed copies of all evidence, backed up on 3 separate cloud services. "You're building a fortress," Dr. Marin observed during our emergency session. "I'm building boundaries," I corrected. The difference is that boundaries can have doors, but I'm the only one with keys." Wednesday night, Stephanie's TikToks hit 15,000 views. The comments ranged from "toxic family check" to "this is why I'm no contact." Mason tried damage control, posting that it was all in good fun and I couldn't take a joke. The ratio was brutal, 200 comments calling him out for every like. Avery texted at 11 p.m., "Your mother's lawyer just called. They want to negotiate." "No, that's my girl. See you tomorrow night." I stood in my apartment, looking at the invitation list. 17 had viewed the event page. 8 had RSVP'd, including Aunt Lorraine, Ruby, and surprisingly, my father's secretary Janet. Mother texted once more, "You're destroying this family." I didn't respond. The family, she meant the one where silence was currency and humiliation was bonding. That family needed destroying. Thursday at 8 p.m., I'd begin its controlled demolition. The stage was set, the audience invited. The difference this time, I was the director, and they'd already given me all the material I needed. River and Rail was packed by 7:45 p.m. The usual Thursday crowd mixed with familiar faces, Aunt Lorraine in the front row, Ruby beside her, Uncle Glenn near the back with his wife. Janet from my father's office sat alone, nursing a latte. My parents hadn't shown, but Mason stood by the bar, his girlfriend Stephanie recording before we'd even started. The space glowed under warm Edison bulbs. Jaya had arranged chairs in a semicircle, creating intimacy without confrontation. The small stage held only a microphone and stool. Behind it, Mark's projector showed a simple title slide, "Boundaries and Respect Stories of Reclamation." I went third, after a woman whose mother had shared her therapy notes with her entire church, and a man whose brother live-streamed his intervention. When I took the stage, the familiar faces shifted in their seats. 6 days ago, I began, voice steady. Someone went into my purse during a family dinner. They took my private diary and read it aloud for entertainment. Details about pregnancy loss, about salary discrimination, about intimate relationship struggles. 23 people watched. Most laughed. I didn't look at Mason. Didn't need to. The miscarriage happened at 8 weeks. October 15th, 3:42 a.m. I'd already picked names. We'd told no one wanted to wait until Christmas. Make it special. The person who read those words aloud added commentary, called it dramatic. The audience laughed. A woman in the second row wiped her eyes. She didn't know me, but she knew this pain. Someone filmed it, posted it online with hashtags about family fun. The videos got thousands of views. Strangers commented on my private grief, turned it into content, into entertainment. The person who posted it called me pathetic. Behind me, the slide changed to a screenshot of Mason's Instagram, username and face blurred. Only the hashtags visible. Family fun, truth hurts, drama queen. But here's what I learned, I continued. When someone violates your boundaries for entertainment, they're telling you exactly who they are. When an audience applauds that violation, they're showing you their values. And when you've been conditioned since childhood to accept humiliation as love, it takes something this explicit to finally see clearly. From the bar, Mason's laugh cut through forced, too loud. This is ridiculous. If you can't handle family joking around, sir, Jaya stepped forward. This is a structured event. Please respect the speakers or leave. She's talking about me, about her family. This is defamation. I haven't named anyone, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying over his. I'm sharing my experience. If you recognize yourself in my story, that's your recognition, not my accusation. Stephanie had her phone up, recording the confrontation. Good. Let her. Mason stormed toward the stage. You think you're so clever with your lawyer friend, your little event. Nobody cares about your diary. Eva, you're just proving what everyone already knows, you're too sensitive for the real world. The room went silent. This was the moment I'd prepared for. The reaction Avery had predicted. I reached into my bag, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.01. I read calmly. Intrusion upon seclusion. One who intentionally intrudes, physically or otherwise, upon the solitude or seclusion of another or his private affairs or concerns, is subject to liability for invasion of privacy. I looked directly at him for the first time. That's not sensitivity. That's law. You're seriously going to sue your own family. I'm seriously going to establish boundaries with consequences. The same way you'd call the police if someone broke into your house, even if that someone was family. Property is property. Privacy is privacy. The law doesn't have a family exemption clause for violation. Aunt Lorraine stood up. Mason, sit down or leave. You're embarrassing yourself. You're taking her side after everything our family, Lorraine said, her voice cutting like glass, taught you that other people's pain was entertainment. I hosted that dinner. I watched it happen under my roof. I'm complicit, and I'm here to learn how to do better. You're here to intimidate. There's the door. Mason looked around the room at faces that weren't laughing, weren't supporting him. Even Stephanie had lowered her phone. This isn't over, he said, but it came out weak, deflated. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. Because next week, at the family dinner you're all planning to attend, there will be new rules, legal ones, documented ones, and anyone who violates them will face consequences beyond family disappointment. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle Jaya's vintage concert posters. I turned back to the audience, strangers and family mixed together, all watching me with something I'd never seen at a family gathering: respect. The hardest part, I said, finding my rhythm again, isn't the violation itself. It's recognizing that the people who should protect you are the ones holding you down for the entertainment of others. But once you see it, really see it, you can't unknow it. And that's where power begins. The projection behind me changed to the final slide. Your boundaries are not negotiable. Your privacy is not entertainment. Your pain is not public property. When I stepped down, the applause wasn't performative. Ruby was crying. Lorraine nodded slowly, deliberately. And in the back, Uncle Glenn stood up not to leave, but to clap louder. The real verdict came from a stranger in the third row who grabbed my hand as I passed. Thank you, I needed to hear this. I have my own phone calls to make. Friday morning arrived with a flurry of certified mail receipts. Mother signed for hers at 9:15 a.m. Father at his office at 10:30 a.m. Mason's assistant at Queensgate Impact signed at 11:45 a.m., which meant his entire workplace now knew he was receiving legal documents. Avery called at noon. Your mother's lawyer just sent a response. They're claiming family communications are not subject to privacy torts. I almost admire the creativity. And I responded with the security footage of her rifling through your purse, time-stamped at 7:15 p.m., before any family communication began. Also included the text where she admitted taking your diary and demanded an apology before returning it. Textbook conversion and extortion. The restraining order paperwork was filed by 2 p.m. Not a full protective order, we weren't claiming physical danger, but a civil harassment restraining order. It would require them to maintain distance, cease all discussion of my private information, and return my property immediately. Judge Morrison is reviewing it Monday, Avery said, but the temporary order is effective immediately upon service. Mason made the mistake of escalating on social media. He posted a rant about cancel culture infiltrating families and weaponizing victimhood. Within hours, someone had connected his account to Queensgate Impact's donor page. The nonprofit's communications director called me directly. Ms. Hart, we're concerned about an employee publicly discussing private family matters that may involve legal action. It reflects poorly on our commitment to community trust. I haven't mentioned his employment, I said carefully. My concerns are personal, not professional. Understood, but we'll be having our own conversation with him about social media policies and professional conduct. The dominoes kept falling. Mother's Junior League chapter president sent a formal letter requesting she take a voluntary leave of absence while personal matters are resolved. The language was polite, but the message was clear. Public humiliation of family members didn't align with their mission of women's empowerment. Saturday brought an unexpected visitor. Father stood at my apartment door at 8 a.m., looking older than I'd ever seen him. Don't, I said, not opening the security chain. Anything you say can be used in the civil case. I know. Avery sent the papers. He pulled out my diary, wrapped in a plastic bag like evidence. I wanted to return this personally. Leave it on the doormat. He set it down gently, then straightened. Your mother found it, but I helped read it. I laughed. I poured wine while she performed. I'm culpable. Yes, you are. That event Thursday. Lorraine sent me the recording. The woman who spoke about church that was like us. Wasn't it using community as audience for someone's humiliation? Except you used my actual name, my actual pain, my actual diary. He nodded slowly. The nonprofit called my office, wanted to verify Mason's employment references. Apparently, there are discrepancies in his resume. That has nothing to do with me. No, but it's connected. When you pull one thread, he stopped. Your mother wants to fight this, says we're family. Family forgives. Family respects. Family protects. Family doesn't mind trauma for entertainment. She won't see it that way. Then she'll see it from a witness stand. He flinched. You'd really go that far? You went into my purse. You stole my property. You read about my miscarriage, my dead child, and called it dramatic. You broadcasted my salary to relatives who'll use it against me forever. You exposed Mark's private struggles to his face. How far is too far? Dad. The UV light I'd ordered had arrived the day before. I pulled it out now, clicking it on. His hands glowed bright blue under the light, faint but unmistakable. The smart water from the decoy diary he'd clearly handled at home. What? Forensic marking, completely legal on my own property. You touched something that wasn't yours. Again, even after receiving legal notice. It'll fade in a few weeks, but it's documented. Avery has the photos from my initial application, proving the diary was treated after you stole the first one. His face went pale. You trapped us. You trapped yourselves. I just provided the evidence. Monday's hearing was set for 2 p.m. The entire family knew. Aunt Lorraine had offered to testify on my behalf. Ruby submitted her written statement. Even Janet from Father's office provided an affidavit about witnessing workplace inappropriate discussions of private financial information. Mother broke silence Sunday night, leaving a voicemail at 11:58 p.m. You win. Eva. We'll consent to the order. We'll agree to your terms. Just stop this. Stop turning everyone against us. I didn't respond. They'd turned everyone against themselves. I just refused to keep it secret anymore. The real victory came in an unexpected text from Mason's girlfriend. Stephanie. I deleted everything. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what we were doing. Good luck Monday. Even the audience was abandoning the show. The next family gathering arrived 3 weeks later, Aunt Lorraine's February birthday dinner. She'd specifically requested no phones, no recordings, and a neutral moderator. She'd hired an actual event coordinator, Diane, who collected devices at the door like a high-security corporate meeting. I arrived at precisely 7 p.m. Mark beside me, Avery trailing with a leather portfolio. We'd timed it perfectly. Most of the family was already seated, cocktail hour over, no chance for ambush conversations. Eva's here, someone whispered, the words rippling through the dining room like a stone in water. Mother sat at her usual place, hands folded, wearing the kind of fixed smile she'd perfected for PTA photos. Father nursed a bourbon, studying the tablecloth. Mason lounged in his chair, but his knuckles were white around his water glass. Lorraine had banned alcohol for this dinner. I took my assigned seat, placed my purse deliberately on the table, and pulled out a manila envelope, setting it beside my plate like a centerpiece. Before we begin, Diane announced, Lorraine has asked me to remind everyone that this is a family dinner, not a performance. Everyone's privacy will be respected. How civilized, Mother murmured, loud enough to carry. The first course arrived soup, something safe and impossible to throw. Conversation stayed surface-level weather, sports, anything but the restraining order papers half the room had received. Then Diane stood again. Lorraine has requested that family members who wish to speak may do so now, one at a time, with respect. Mother immediately raised her hand. I'd like to address the elephant in the room. My daughter has torn this family apart with her lawsuits and dramatics. Elaine, Lorraine warned. No, let her speak, I said, pulling out my phone and setting it on the table. But know that I'm recording, legally. One-party consent state. Mother's jaw tightened. Of course you are. Everything's evidence now, isn't it? Everything always was. You just weren't the one collecting it before. Mason couldn't contain himself. This is insane. We're family. Family jokes around. A knock interrupted him. Everyone turned as Diane answered the door, returning with a uniformed process server. I'm looking for Elaine Hart, Victor Hart, and Mason Hart. The three of them froze as the server approached with practiced efficiency, placing papers in front of each. You've been served. Have a nice evening. The silence that followed was absolute. Avery stood, addressing the room. Those are civil lawsuits for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conversion. We attempted to resolve this privately. That offer was rejected. Discovery begins Monday. Discovery. Father's voice cracked. Every text, email, social media post, every video taken that night. Every person who witnessed it will be deposed under oath. Every family secret you'd rather keep private becomes part of the public record. I stood then, picking up my manila envelope. But I'm not unreasonable. Inside this envelope is a settlement offer. Sign it tonight, all three of you, and this ends here. Refuse, and we proceed publicly. What do you want? Mother's composure finally cracked. Money. I want a contract, legally binding, no discussion of my private information, no access to my personal property, no recording or photographing me without consent. Violation results in immediate $5,000 penalties per incident. You're asking us to sign away our rights as parents. I'm asking you to sign a promise to treat me with the same respect you'd give a stranger, because strangers wouldn't go through my purse." Mason laughed bitterly. "This is extortion." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "Extortion was when Mother demanded an apology before returning my stolen diary. This is consequence." I opened my purse, then the same brown leather one they'd rifled through, and pulled out my diary. The real one. I set it on the table, unopened. "3 weeks ago, you turned my privacy into your entertainment. You passed my diary around this very table like a party game." I opened it to a marked page. "Would you like me to return the favor?" Mother went rigid. "You wouldn't." "October 2005. I read calmly. "Found Mother's Xanax prescription hidden in the flour container. 3 different doctors. That's illegal, isn't it?" "Stop," she whispered. "February 2010. Father's secretary Janet called the house crying. Mother threw a wine bottle at the wall. "Eva, please." August 2015. Mason failed his 3rd drug test. Parents paid $40,000 to make it disappear. Queensgate Impact might find that interesting. "You're just like us," Mason exploded, standing so fast his chair fell backward. "You're doing exactly what we did." "No," I said quietly, closing the diary. "I'm showing you what it feels like. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers, respect the boundaries, and your secrets stay secret. Refuse, and everything becomes evidence in a public trial." The room held 23 people, the same audience from that first night. But now they watched my parents and Mason, waiting to see what they'd choose. Aunt Lorraine spoke into the silence. "I'd sign if I were you. Eva's being more gracious than you were." Ruby added softly, "Way more gracious." Even Uncle Glenn nodded. "Take the deal." Father reached for the papers first, his hands shaking. "Where do I sign?" Mother held out longer. A full minute of silence before her shoulders dropped. "Give me the pen." Mason was last, but with his employer already investigating his resume and the drug test revelation hanging in the air, he had no leverage left. "There," he said, shoving the papers back at me. "Happy now?" I collected the signatures, handed them to Avery for notarization, then picked up my diary and returned it to my purse. "I'm not happy," I said, standing to leave. "But I'm free. And I'll take freedom over family any day." I walked out of that dining room with my head high, Mark's hand in mine, and the sound of absolute silence behind me. No laughter, no applause, just the echo of consequences, finally delivered. The bailiff entered the dining room at 7:20 p.m., his uniform crisp, his expression professionally neutral. Behind him, Avery carried a folder thick with legal documents. The room, the same family members, the same mahogany table, but Diane still moderating, went cemetery quiet. "Elaine Hart," the bailiff called out. My mother's wine glass trembled. "Yes, Victor Hart. Here, Mason Hart. This is harassment." Mason started, but Lorraine cut him off. "Answer him." "Here," Mason muttered. The bailiff approached each of them with practiced precision, placing sealed envelopes before them. "You are being served with civil action case numbers 24-C-987, 988, and 989. These documents require your immediate attention. Failure to respond within 30 days will result in default judgment." The papers weren't a surprise they'd rejected the private settlement. But being served in front of the same audience they'd used against me, that was choreographed justice. I stood then, walking to the small platform Lorraine had installed for toasts. The microphone was already on. "3 months ago, in this room, my privacy became your entertainment. My diary was passed around. My miscarriage mocked. My salary exposed. My relationship dissected." I kept my voice steady, clinical. "You chose this venue. You chose this audience. So I'm returning the favor." I pulled out a single sheet of paper, not my diary, but a prepared statement. "I'm establishing boundaries. Legal ones, enforceable ones. This isn't about revenge or money. It's about a simple principle: my life is not your content. My pain is not your punchline. My private thoughts are not your party game. Mother stood up. You ungrateful. Elaine, the bailiff said calmly, I'd advise against making statements that could be used in proceedings. She sank back down, face flushed. I placed my actual diary on the podium, its leather cover worn from years of use. Then I wrapped it in chains, actual chains from the hardware store, and locked it with a padlock. This is mine, my thoughts, my experiences, my property. Anyone who thinks they have the right to take it, read it, share it without my permission. I held up a key, then dropped it in my purse. That thinking ends tonight. Mason couldn't help himself. So dramatic, always the victim. No, I interrupted. Not a victim. Not anymore. Victims don't file lawsuits. Victims don't set boundaries with consequences. Victims don't stand up in front of their abusers and say, never again. Ruby started clapping. Slowly. Alone at first. Then Lorraine joined. Then Uncle Glenn. Then Janet from Father's office. One by one, over half the room applauded not for a performance, but for a declaration of independence. I have one final thing to say. I looked directly at my parents. Then Mason. You taught me something valuable that night. You taught me that family can be the deepest source of cruelty, dressed up as love, disguised as humor. But you also taught me that I don't have to accept it. I don't have to forgive it. And I definitely don't have to enable it by staying silent. Avery stepped forward. The complaints seek compensatory and punitive damages for intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, and conversion of property. Additionally, we're requesting permanent restraining orders. Discovery begins Monday. Any attempts to contact my client outside of legal channels will be considered harassment. Father's voice came out strangled. Ava, we're your parents. Biologically, yes. Legally, you're defendants. And socially, I picked up the chained diary. Socially, you're strangers who happen to know my history. Nothing more. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. The three of them sat frozen, papers before them, the weight of consequences finally real. The audience they'd performed for was now witnessing their reckoning. You wanted an audience, I said. You wanted entertainment. You wanted to expose someone's private pain for laughs. Congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted. It just wasn't my pain on display this time. Mason's face had gone pale. Queensgate Impact had already started their investigation, and the drug test revelation hung over him like a guillotine. Mother gripped her wine glass so tight I thought it might shatter. Father just stared at the legal papers, looking every one of his 63 years. The difference between us, I said, my hand on the door handle, is that I'm giving you a choice. Respect my boundaries. Leave me alone. And this ends with civil judgments. Continue your behavior, and those criminal harassment charges Avery mentioned become real. Your choice, your consequences. I left them there, in that dining room that had hosted decades of family gatherings, holiday meals, celebrations, the place where they'd thought they could hurt me without cost, the room where they learned that even family, especially family, has to face the scales of justice. Mark waited in the car, engine running. How do you feel? Like I just performed an exorcism. No regrets. I thought about it as we drove away, the house getting smaller in the rear mirror. They had every chance to apologize, to return my diary quietly, to respect basic boundaries. They chose escalation every time, so no regrets. Just relief. My phone buzzed with texts from relatives who'd witnessed everything, support from Ruby and Lorraine, even a message from Stephanie, Mason's ex-girlfriend. You're brave. I'm in therapy now because of what I saw that night. Thank you for standing up. The lawsuits would proceed. The judgments would be entered. The restraining orders would be granted. But that was just paperwork. The real victory was simpler. I'd never have to sit at that table again. pretending cruelty was connection, that mockery was love, that my pain was anyone's entertainment but my own story to tell. They'd stolen my diary once. They'd never touch anything of mine again. The fire I'd lit that first night had burned through everything false, everything toxic, everything that had kept me trapped in their performance. All that remained were boundaries, clear and bright as diamonds, and the freedom of never going back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your own experiences with setting boundaries, standing up to family toxicity, or reclaiming your power. I want to hear them all. Remember, your story matters, and you deserve respect, especially from those who claim to love you.